I'm Chris, and this is MMA for You. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC Fight Night 92, Caceres versus Rodriguez, which happens on August 6th. But before I get into that, I'd like to plug my own author's website at www.chrismaldon.com. I am an author specializing in the fantasy genre, and you can buy a couple of my works, starting with my first novel, an action adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Condiment Kingdom, for $4.99 at www.chrismaldon.com on PDF format, or if you have an e-reader, you can buy it on amazon.com for $4.99. Also, you can buy some of my short stories and short story collections, starting with the fantasy horror short story, The Land of the Wooden Statues, which I'm trying to make into a novel right now. The horror collection, which is a collection of 3 of my gothic horror short stories, and the fantasy fable collection, which is a collection of 4 of my fantasy fable short stories, all for $1.99. Okay, on to the card. It's actually just kind of a decent card. There's a couple of like mid-level guys, a couple of good prospects here and there, but for the most part, and a couple of people make their UFC debuts, like Justin Leites, Jay Sherman, Jason Novelli, Danielle Taylor, Joseph Gigliotti. There's some pretty fun action fights. Ponzinibbio is all action. Main event looks fun. It looks like an alright card, though. It's not really standing out to me as like, oh, this fight full of prospects or anything like that. It's just, it's okay, you know. So I'm going to change it up a little bit for the main card. The way I'm doing it is I do my preparation, make my picks, and afterwards I'm just doing it for the main card. I'm gonna look at the betting odds too. So I'm gonna actually say the betting odds here. Might recommend like a betting pick, which might be different from my normal pick. Or hey, this guy can win this way, and the odds, he's an underdog. Maybe you can put some money on him. I don't know. So we'll see how this goes. It's a new thing I'm gonna try out. Just gonna do it for the main card. So let's get started. Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres fights Yair Pantera Rodriguez. Rodriguez 8-1 record, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. He's gonna be the taller fighter at 5'11". He's on a 6-fight win streak and an Ultimate Fighter winner. He's really unorthodox. He has really strong kicks. He has that Taekwondo style stand-up. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is good. He's good off his back, and he's good in the scramble too. He can work top and bottom. Just real unorthodox. Still not the most technical guy, but one of the more flashier guys. Alex Bruce Leroy Caceres, 12-8 record with 1 no contest, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 5 wins by sub. That's just 5 losses by submission. 28 years old, he's 5'9" on a 2-fight win streak. Most recently beating Cole Miller. He trains out of the MMA lab. And in the Cole Miller fight, he really showed some improved hands. His boxing looked solid. His striking combination, his timing was good. His takedown defense, actually against the cage, isn't that bad. A lot of guys from MMA Lab are good at defending takedowns against the cage. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu off his back is good, and he's particularly good at taking the back as well. This is one fight that's actually really hard for me to call because, so the odds have it where Rodriguez is the favorite, -300, Caceres a +250. And I say this about Rodriguez all the time, and I'll say it here. He's still a very hyped prospect who is probably going to lose to the more technical fighter in the future if he keeps the style that he's keeping. Ultimately, I'm gonna go with Rodriguez to win by sub. I still feel that Caceres isn't that great defensively. His hands are improving, and that's where my cause for concern is with Rodriguez, because it's not like he's a great boxer. Like Rodriguez isn't like some great boxer or anything like that. Heck, he doesn't throw too many hands, you know. And Caceres, at this point, I think is probably the better boxer than Rodriguez. So, um, I can see Rodriguez actually getting tagged quite a bit, especially the way his Caceres' boxing looked against Cole Miller. I don't know if Rodriguez can actually take it to the ground too. So this is actually a pretty wow. This is actually a tough pick, huh? I do feel that those odds are actually kind of far apart too. Um, because Rodriguez is a lot of style, but still lacking the substance. If you know what I mean, like he's a lot of flash. It's not to say he's not technical because he is. Um, Relatively, but he's really flashy. That's the thing. And Caceres used to be really flashy, and now he's just he's becoming just a bit more solid about his technique and whatnot. Don't let the records fool you. Like 12-8 for Caceres honestly doesn't really mean anything to me. And Rodriguez being 8-1 honestly doesn't mean much to me, except that Caceres is more experienced and just has a lot more fights. But as far as like whether it's an indicator of him winning or losing, it just tells me that there's more experience at this point. Um, it's hard not to look at Yair Rodriguez's athleticism because this is a guy that's going to throw something flashy. Caceres isn't the best defensively, but the problem with Rodriguez is he's still trying to get the technical kinks, you know, working, and he's still very much a prospect. You can almost call this a prospect versus veteran fight, in a sense. Caceres is considered something of a veteran. Wow, this one's hard for me to call. I'll go with Rodriguez. I think he can catch him with something hard, some kicks and whatnot. Um, Staying unorthodox. I find that Rodriguez might have a hard time taking Caceres down. I also have a feeling that Caceres would have the better hands than Rodriguez, as shown in the Cole Miller fight. And like I said, I think Rodriguez is a better athlete of the two. On the ground, tough to say actually, because Caceres is actually getting significantly better on the ground. But Rodriguez is also good on the ground, good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He's good off his back, good on the scramble. So, um, yikes, this is really hard to call. Yeah, I'll go with Yair Rodriguez to win this one. Though, I was going to say sub, I just don't know how he's going to actually take it to the ground. Now that I think about it. I'll go safe. Yair Rodriguez by decision. Um, that plus 200 on Caceres, like I said, he's a better boxer, a more experienced fighter. Rodriguez still a prospect, still working out the technical kinks. Not the best hands, but better athlete. I can see value in Caceres. If I were actually going to go with my whole betting pick thing, yeah, I'd actually maybe put some. I guess they call it units. Uh, I can see putting some units on Caceres just because Rodriguez is so new. He's still raw, you know. Still a prospect, and a lot of the reason why he's up here is because there is still a little bit of hype around him. Um, but he is good, and he is getting legitimately a lot better. So, but ultimately, yeah, Yair Rodriguez, to win by decision, betting pick on Alex Caceres. Whatever. I don't know how this betting thing works. I just, units on Caceres. Yeah, as an underdog pick. Yeah, okay, I can see that. Next right off that, Dennis the Menace Bermudez fights Hane Jason Bezeha. Right? That's how you pronounce it. Yeah. I'll just say Hane Jason 14-5 record with 1 no contest. 5 wins by KO or TKO, 8 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by KO or TKO. 32 years old. He's 5'7", training out of Avaluque Altai with the likes of Masranduba and Godofredo Pepe. He is an Ultimate Fighter winner, and he last fought in May of 2015. His stand-up is average. His stand-up defense is actually not very good. He does have strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, and he's particularly good off his back. Dennis Bermudez, 15-5 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. Also has 4 losses by sub, 29 years old, he's 5'6". The thing with Bermudez is the dude is just strong as heck. I mean, he's a strong wrestler. If he gets you, like Bezerra, up against the cage, he's probably taking him down. He's probably slamming him. His takedown defense is strong. I think he actually has a UFC record on takedown defense. His ground and pound is good. His stand-up's improving, but his stand-up defense is absolutely atrocious. I mean, he's a guy that gets hit hard in almost every fight. There was a point where he was getting dropped by just about everyone he fought, and it's almost still like that with him. With that said, I'm gonna go with Dennis Bermudez to win by KO or TKO. I don't think, but here's the thing: Bezerra is not particularly big for 145. I even hear that he eats a good amount. Like, he could cut to 135. It's just that he's kind of he doesn't diet well. So that's a cause for concern right there, because him being a smaller guy, finding a guy like Bermudez, he's short, but he's big for the weight class. A guy like Bermudez is probably going to take a guy like Bezerra down and pound him out. I can't see Bezerra catching Bermudez in a sub. I know, in Bermudez's first fight, he got cut in a sub by an armbar. I just can't see that happening here. The way I see this fight happening is takedown, ground and pound, and a lot of that rinse and repeat. Even standing, Bermudez's offense isn't bad. His defense is just atrocious. The thing with Bezerra, though, his defense standing isn't that good either. So, I'd even argue that Bermudez might be the harder hitter. So, I'm going to go Dennis Bermudez by KO or TKO, actually. I don't see a good underdog bet here. I don't see Bezerra catching him, even though Bermudez's stand-up defense is pretty bad. I don't see him catching him. I don't see him getting a sub. So yeah, Dennis Bermudez, KO or TKO. Next fight after that, Chris Camozzi fights Thales Leites. Chris Camozzi, 24-10 record, 7 wins by KO or TKO, 7 wins by sub. Also has 5 losses by sub, 29 years old, he's 6'3", on a 3-fight win streak. Most recently beating the guy, calls himself Lex Luthor, right? Vitor Miranda. Trains out of Factory X Muay Thai. The biggest thing with Camozzi is the dude is super game and super resilient. He is really hard to stop with strikes, and he keeps coming at his opponent. His stand-up's improving. You actually saw that in the Vitor Miranda fight, and his grappling. He was actually out-grappling Miranda, too. He's always been a guy that's good everywhere, but not great at any one aspect of MMA. But he's big, he's tough, and resilient. Thales Leites, 25-6 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 14 wins by sub. He's 34 years old, he's 6'1", on a 2-fight losing streak, training out of Novo União. Leites is a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt with really strong at taking the back. He has a good clinch takedown game. If he gets you up against the cage, you get completing takedowns there. And his stand-up, his boxing actually is improving. It's still rote, it's still rudimentary, but it's good enough. And he's actually got a pretty good chin too. Historically speaking, Chris Camozzi loses to BJJ guys who can kind of strike. I mean, if you look at his record, it's full of losses to that type of fighter. I think, didn't he lose to Natal, if I'm not mistaken, right? He lost Natal. He lost that one dude who whose name I forgot, but whose only thing is to like take down and grind. um, Historically speaking, this is like one of those nightmare matchups for Camozzi in a sense. But I don't know if this is the same Chris Camozzi. Ultimately, though, I am going to go Thales Leites to win by submission. I think he's going to get him up against a cage, take him down, maybe even take his back and submit him. Like I said, just historically speaking, Chris Camozzi loses to like high level BJJ guys and grinders. The problem I have here is that like Camozzi is getting better, and if Camozzi can defend the takedowns, he can outwork Thales Leites here. Like, that's the thing, because Thales Leites isn't going to stop Camozzi by strikes. I mean, he might, but I doubt it, because I've seen Camozzi take some hard shots and keep going. Um, he's just like that tough as nails guy, and he might just be able to outwork Thales Leites to decision. Um, Nonetheless, Thales Leites, despite his two-fight losing streak, it's still like some good guys too. I think it's like Bisping and Mousasi, and I was like, okay, like unless it's those guys, that's fine. Michael Bisping is like UFC champion right now. I mean, and Mousasi's been a perennial top 10, who might even, heck, like the way he's going, he might actually get a title shot. No shame in losing to those guys. I think Camozzi is a guy that's like trying to break out of that middleweight pack, but I don't know. I don't like. This is the fight where he's gonna do it or not. But I don't have faith that like his grappling, everything's improving, but like he's still not on like that BJJ level that Leites is. And Leites has fought championship level caliber competition. Still has a good chin, decent enough stand up. I just hope Leites doesn't like shoot from like super far away. So yeah, I'll go with Leites by sub. I think he can take down Camozzi, get a dominant position, get a sub. Um, I can't say I'm actually that confident in his pick, even though like Camozzi is historically has lost to the Thales Leites of the world. So at plus 160, I mean, it's actually pretty close, it looks like, as far as the odds go. That actually makes sense. Camozzi's kind of on the up, and Leites is on the down. Um, yeah, I can see units being put on Camozzi. I wouldn't necessarily call him a great betting pick or anything like that. But like as far as an underdog capable of winning, yeah, I can see him winning. It's definitely possible. And I see the avenue for him to do so. Especially against a guy like Thales Leites, who's good standing but not great, and Camozzi's a guy that can just outwork him, similar to like Bisping in a way. But ultimately, Leites by sub. Next fight after that, Zach Cummings fights Santiago Gentaboa Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio, 22-3 record, 13 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by KO TKO. 29 years old, he's 6 foot on a 2-fight win streak, training out of Team Noguera and ATT. Santiago has some good stand-up. He is particularly heavy-handed. His takedown defense is actually pretty good. His overall grappling is just average. It's not his strength, but it's not like he's not just totally inept there or anything like that. He most recently knocked out Court McGee. Zach Cummings, 19-4 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 9 wins by sub. Has his 2 losses by submission. 31 years old, he's 6 foot on a 2-fight win streak. Trains out of Glory MMA and Fitness with the likes of James Krause, Megan Anderson, and Tim Elliott, I believe. One thing that Cummings, I believe he's a southpaw. He has a really good left cross, and his counter striking's actually improved. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu has always been good. He has actually a pretty good front choke, and he's big, tough, and resilient. You know, Santiago Ponzinibbio beat up a tough guy in Court McGee last time out and knocked him out. And then Zach Cummings just beat up a tough guy and Nicholas Dalby last time out. One thing I was noticing that Dalby or that Cummings was hitting him with was a counter left cross. He was hitting him with that like all day. Cummings is actually showing to be a bit more heavy-handed these days. Um, this one's tough. I'm going to tell you right now. This was actually, when I made my picks, this is actually one of the last ones I picked because I couldn't actually pick a winner. Um, so, with that said, I was kind of coin flipping here. I've always liked Santiago Ponzinibbio's game a little better, but Cummings is one of those guys that's just coming up. Um, you know, he's just like slowly but surely coming up. I mean, like the last time he lost was somewhat like Gunnar Nelson, you know. But the thing with Ponzinibbio is like Cummings is showing some power in his strike, some good counter striking. Ponzinibbio is just he's really aggressive too. He hits hard. He's not a bad grappler. You know, I mean Ryan LaFleur was able to out grapple him. Ryan LaFleur is actually a very underrated wrestler. Um, I like Ponzinibbio here to be able to connect with the even harder shots. Like I said, Cummings is getting better in the stand up, particularly with his cross. But you know, here's the thing with Cummings: when he fought Dalby, I mean, Dalby's not a hard hitting guy. He throws in combination, but he just doesn't hit hard. So like Cummings didn't have to respect that, so he's able to just counter him almost at will. The thing with Ponzinibbio, this guy has fight-ending power. I mean, I'd be surprised if Cummings would treat Ponzinibbio that same way. Of just like, oh yeah, I can walk through your punches and throw counters just about any time I want to. You know, I don't think that's the case here. So yeah, I'm gonna go Ponzinibbio to win this one. Kind of tough to say how because Cummings is tough, but man, does Ponzinibbio hit hard. um, you know, because of Zach Cummings' toughness, I'll go by decision. Even though Ponzinibbio is a potent finisher, Cummings is the underdog at plus 160. Ponzinibbio at minus 185. Um, makes you know what I'd actually say, in my humble opinion, I think that it should be a little closer to even. Um, I think Zach Cummings is being a bit underrated here, to be honest with you. I see avenues for him to win. He could actually take it to the ground. He's a big. Here's the other thing too with Zach Cummings though. He also thrives on being the bigger guy a lot of times, and in this case, Ponzinibbio's a big guy too. So it's like a lot of the advantages that helps Cummings win in welterweight size, especially the size thing, aren't going to be so prevalent here against Ponzinibbio, which is why I'm picking Ponzinibbio to win. But, you know, like I said, I think it's close. I think Zach Cummings is totally underrated. Um, yeah, I can see him winning, despite being the underdog. I can definitely see him winning this fight. You know, like I said, I don't know if those are good betting odds or not. Like I said, I don't bet. But as far as like an underdog capable of winning, yeah, I can definitely see it. I'd say Cummings is probably better on the ground if he can get it there. And like I said, he's finding his power. He's kind of like putting it all together at this point. While Ponzinibbio is just a flat out killer who's knocking dudes out that are pretty tough to knock out. Court McGee is a hard guy to knock out. I think that's the first time Court McGee got knocked out, actually. Um, Nonetheless, Ponzinibbio by decision. Um, yeah, I see Zach Cummings as an underdog, plus 160 underdog, being able to win that one, though. As far as that, Joseph Gigliotti fights Trevor Hot Sauce Smith. Smith, 13-6 record, 1 win by KO, 9 wins by sub. Also has 4 losses by KO or TKO, 35 years old, he's 6'3". Trading wins and losses, most recently beating Dan Miller. Last fought July of 2015. He has some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He's a particularly good wrestler too. His boxing is improving, but his stand-up defense isn't very good. Gigliotti, 7-0 undefeated record, 3 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by sub, 22 years old. He's 5'11", training out of... I think he's actually shorter than that. Like, honestly, I don't think he's 5'11". I think he's actually a lot shorter than that. I just checked out Fight Finder. That's what they had. Gigliotti trains out of Power MMA, and I think I'm pronouncing his last name wrong. It is his first fight in the UFC, and he is a finisher who's never been to decision. So I saw one of his fights. I mean, he has a blitzing boxing style. I mean, like honestly, like it's not. It's pretty similar to actually like Hector Lombard, where he comes in there and just throws hooks because he's like the shorter guy, and he's really heavy-handed. But he does have a wrestling background too, and he showed a good front choke in the fights I've seen from him. Tough one to call, but like. I can't see Smith getting Gigliotti down, and standing, Smith's getting better, but Gigliotti, dude, that guy hits hard, man. He just needs to get inside, because now you're talking about a guy who's 6'3", he's like big for the weight class. Trevor Smith used to fight a light heavyweight, versus Gigliotti, who, for all we know, might cut to welterweight. So that is some cause for concern, because Gigliotti has to get in there to be able to release his hands, pretty much. But yeah, ultimately, I'm gonna go with Joseph Gigliotti to win this by KO or TKO. Like I said with Smith, he's been through some battles, like the Ed Herman battle, for example. He's a guy that gets hit a lot. I don't think he can take Gigliotti down. He might be able to just attack him from range, but like I don't know if Smith has the stand-up skill to do that for 3 rounds. And I can see Gigliotti eventually getting in there and just throwing hard shots. So Gigliotti by KO or TKO. Odds, Gigliotti at -140. Favorite, Trevor Smith plus 120. Underdog. Those look pretty close. Yeah, that makes sense. Smith is just a more experienced guy. He has wins in the UFC. He's bigger. He's a taller fighter. Well, Gigliotti is still very much improving. He trains at a great camp, and he's only 22. He looks like from what I've seen, he looks like a pretty good prospect, actually. Possible blue chipper. But first fight in the UFC, Octagon jitters, still a prospect versus veteran fight. So yeah, I can see, but the problem with Smith too is he's not a knockout threat. He's not much of a knockout threat. And while he is a submission threat, I just can't see him getting it to the ground with that much consistency. So yeah, Joseph Gigliotti, KO or TKO. You can see possibly Smith winning, but it's not. I'm not too I would actually say my confidence with Gigliotti winning's relatively not super high. I don't know, 60-40, 70-30, something like that. In favor of Gigliotti. Next fight after that, same dynamic of this taller fighter versus the shorter fighter here. Maryna, the Iron Woman Moroz, fights Danielle Dynamite Taylor. Taylor, 7-1 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 1 win by sub, 26 years old. She's 5 foot. She's on a 2-fight win streak, and it's her first fight in the UFC, and she's taking on short notice. So I saw 2 fights of hers, and she's not a bad boxer, but she's more of a counter striker, and she's an atom weight. Heck, she might be able to cut to 100 pounds. I mean, she is pretty small for the division. She's short. That's the big thing. But she does show some power in her hands when she does counter strike. I mean, she really commits. Once again, it's actually not dissimilar to Lombard in a sense, but probably not as good and not as heavy-handed, honestly. The fights I've seen Taylor in too, I mean, she was getting beat up at range pretty well until she managed to get inside and just throw bombs. Maryna Moroz, 7-1 record, 1 win by TKO, 5 wins by sub. 24 years old. She's 5'7", so she's gonna be the much taller fighter here. She's a good boxer in her own right, and her overall grappling is improving from top control, from the top. From the bottom, she always has that armbar that she goes to. Um, it's hard not to pick Moroz here. I mean, it's just like the thing is, she has more experience against UFC level competition. She's actually pretty big for this weight class. At 115, she's 5'7" and 115. Um, she's pretty big for this weight class, and Daniel Taylor's small for the weight class. Moroz can pick her apart from the outside. Um, Inside, though, I can see Taylor, if she can get in, I can see her throwing her bombs. Rose's overall grappling looks to be improving too. You saw in this Santiago fight. And, yeah, she always has that good armbar from her back. So, just, with the experience, um, and Moroz is actually she's becoming just a more solid fighter. Overall, she's becoming just a lot more solid fighter. I wouldn't say she's great at any one aspect of MMA, but she's becoming one of those like good everywhere type fighters. So yeah, Maryna Moroz. I didn't know how potent of a finisher she was. I'll go by sub. What the heck? Um, like I said, just a taller fighter, ranger fighter, more experienced. It's funny. They're both 7-1, and I'm saying more experienced. I should actually say more experience at the higher levels. I mean, you're talking about like Moroz fighting like Valerie Letourneau, who just fought for a title, Joanne Calderwood. Um, at this point, she's just more experienced against higher level competition. Um, and she's not taking the fight on short notice, so you never know about the gas tank issues as well. So yeah, Maryna Moroz by submission. Can Danielle Taylor win it if she goes and counters and hits her with some hard shots? I suppose, but I think Moroz is pretty solid here, And I've always found Moroz pretty solid at this point. So, uh, as far as an underdog being able to win, I don't personally see it here, but crazy things happen in MMA. And it's women's MMA too, so that's another thing to think about. You just don't really know who you're getting because it's so new. Everything's so new. Everyone's still I mean, both these fighters have less than 10 fights. So, um, women's MMA, it's kind of tough to say how good and not good fighters are at this point because they just haven't fought a lot. But nonetheless, Moroz by submission. Okay, so yeah, I'm not gonna do odds for the prelims because I didn't see odds for one thing. Um, but yeah, let's keep going. Court the Crusher McGee fights Dominique nonstop action-packed Steele. Steele 14-7 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. He also has 4 losses by KO or TKO. 28 years old, he's 5'10", trading losses and wins. Most recently lost to Danny Roberts, in a fight that I thought he kind of won actually. The thing with non-stop action packed is that he makes fights ugly. He's strong. He's a strong guy. He likes to clinch his opponent. He has good clinch striking. If he can take his opponent down, he will. And his ground and pound's actually pretty good. His stand-ups is pretty average. His strength is, in my opinion, from what I've seen so far, it's a clinch. He just makes it real. He makes a real dirty fight. Dirty boxing, a lot of grappling. Just makes it a real ugly fight. And Court McGee is actually not that different. Court McGee, 17-5 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 7 wins by sub, 31 years old, he's 5'11", trains out of Pitt Elevated, and he is an Ultimate Fighter winner, trading losses and wins, most recently getting knocked out by Santiago Ponzinibbio. McGee, despite getting knocked out by Ponzinibbio, he has shown to be quite resilient, a good wrestler in his own right, also makes fights quite ugly, and his stand-up average at best. I'm going to say this right now, and usually I don't have too many outside factors here, coming into play, but I'll say, Court McGee fighting, I believe this is in Salt Lake City. So he's fighting at home. Um, I can't help but feel that's going to give him a boost. I think Pitt, isn't Pitt elevated, like, just around the corner, too? Like, um, if I'm not mistaken, is it at Salt Lake City? Now that I think about it. So, like, he's not, the, how that helps, besides a crowd, is that he's not gonna have to go far to train, so he can be pretty much close to the area to train. He won't have to do a lot of travel, so that always helps. Um, I think he can kind of fight Steele's fight here. You know what I mean? Ugly fight against a cage. Um, Standing, I think McGee just throws a little more volume. Uh, you can even see like the Robert Whitaker fight. Like he's throwing, he's missing a lot, but he's hitting every once in a while. And like he ended up winning the decision because like he just threw more. You know what I mean? So standing, I kind of favor McGee's volume. I like Dominic Steele's clinch game, but like I said, they're both kind of good in this area. They're both just rugged. Um, I'd say McGee is fine at middleweight. He's a strong, big, strong guy. I mean, like Steele's a strong guy himself. So I don't know. Even the strength advantage that Steele typically has, I think it'll be negated because McGee's like a big guy too. You know, relatively. So yeah, I'll go Court McGee by decision here. Um, like I said, they both kind of just fight the same ugly, dirty, rugged style fighting. Um, so it's actually really hard for me to call how this fight's gonna go. But I think Court McGee can do what Dominic Steele does, and just have a little more in the tank to like implement offense. So tough one for me to call, obviously. Court McGee by decision. So I have that Viktor Pesta fights Marcin Tybura. Viktor Pesta, 10-2 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 3 wins by sub. 26 years old, he's 6'3", trading losses and wins. His game is mainly wrestle you to the mat, ground and pound you, and his stand-up is just painfully average. But otherwise, that's kind of what he does. He just kind of takes you down, tries to pound you out, tries to grind on you. Tybura, 13-2 record, 5 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. 30 years old, he's 6'3", trading losses and wins. He has some strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills, especially when he's on top control. Real good there. His offensive takedown ability, especially from the clinch, is really good. His stand-up's pretty average. Tybura most recently lost to Timothy Johnson. Viktor Pesta lost to Derek Lewis. No shame in losing to those guys. I think a lot of people favor Tybura to win against Timothy Johnson, but Timothy Johnson is dirt tough, dude. I mean, when I saw that matchup, I was like, oh, dude. UFC newbie versus Timothy Johnson? Oh, dude. Bet the bank on, like, Timothy Johnson, because that guy is just tough as nails and makes fights real ugly. This fight's probably going to be a real ugly fight. Here's the thing, though. I think Tybura just does what Viktor Pesta does, but even better. I think he's probably a better offensive takedown threat. Heck, he's probably the better striker at this point. And if Tybura's on top, man, he's getting that sub. Or at the very least, not going to make life good for Viktor Pesta. So yeah, I gotta go Marcin Tybura to win this one. I'm gonna go by sub. But I can see a KO or TKO by ground and pound or something like that. You have to remember, Tybura did actually wobble Timothy Johnson in the third round of their fight. So, but otherwise, I can see Tybura getting takedowns, working his top game, probably getting a dominant position, and I can see him getting a sub. So, Marcin Tybura by submission. So after that, Jason Flipside Novelli fights David Teymur. David Teymur, 4-1 record, 3 wins by KO TKO, 1 win by decision. He's 5'9" on a 4-fight win streak, training out of All Stars. His stand-up's good, he has a Muay Thai base. He's pretty heavy-handed, and he has a good leg kick. His takedown defense actually isn't too bad. His problem is he throws a lot of single strikes. He's still very new to MMA with 5 fights. Novelli, 11-1 record with 1 draw. 3 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub, 37 years old. He's 6 foot, training out of Team Quest. And his first fight in the UFC. I think he's actually training somewhere else now. So I watched his fight against Yosteni Sedeno, which is his most recent fight. He got a draw. I liked his stand-up. He used combinations well. It's funny, like from what I've read, Novelli has a boxing background, but like in his fights, his knees were good, his kicks are pretty good, and I hear he has a wrestling background too. This one's actually tough for me to call because Teymur's one of those guys that's going to get better and better. He's actually not a bad prospect in his own right, but he's still very new, still very raw. I don't like that he throws single strikes. I like that Novelli throws combinations. He throws like clean combinations as well. I think at this point Novelli's just a cleaner fighter. He has more crisp striking. Teymur's probably that more heavy-handed guy. And Novelli also does have a wrestling base too. And also, Novelli has more experience. So with that said, I like Jason Novelli to win this one. I'll go by decision. But, Teymur could... I mean, Teymur beat Martin Swanson. I actually rewatched that fight. And it's like, Swanson has, like, no striking ability. You know? And he's shot from, like, 50 yards away. You know what I mean? It's like... That was a good fight for David Teymur to win and a good stylistic matchup for him. I just don't know if Novelli is going to be a good stylistic matchup for him. At least with Novelli, he fought another single striker in Yosteni Sedeno and did well. A heavy-handed striker who throws a lot of single strikes. That's Yosteni Sedeno, you know? And Novelli did pretty well. So, yeah, Novelli by decision. Next fight after that, Horacio, the Punisher Gutierrez, fights Teruto Yashabo Ishihara. Gutierrez, 2-2 record, 1 win by TKO, 1 win by sub. He's 5'10" on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to, Barzola in his last fight. He just got taken down all day and grinding on. Stand-up's average on a technical level, but he does have heavy hands. Ishihara, 8-2 record with 2 draws, 7 wins by KO TKO, 1 win by decision, 24 years old. He's 5'7". So I rewatched his fight against, so it's not it's Rosa. Yes, Julian Rosa. Taller fighter, right? So this is actually really interesting because one thing that Ishihara showed was he's aggressive. I think he trains out of Team Alpha Male now. But he has this hands down style. So like his defense isn't very good. But man, he showed a good leg kick and just real heavy hands. This one's actually a bit tough for me to call because I don't know enough about Gutierrez. But, you know, at this point, it's like a guy with 4 fights versus a guy with, like, 12 fights. I don't know if that matters too much, but it's just... Yeah, like I said, I don't know enough about Gutierrez. Like, the Barzola fight doesn't show me much. The few points where it's standing, his stand-up looked alright. But for the most part, I like, you know, both of them. Good athletes. Ishihara's just a little more experienced. Very willing striker. He's kind of like pathologically aggressive, so I'll go Ishihara to win this one, and I'll even go by KO or TKO. So Teruto, Ishihara, KO or TKO. Okay, on to Fight Pass prelims. Tatsuya Crusher Kawajiri fights Cub Swanson. Kawajiri, 35-9 record with 2 draws, 12 wins by KO or TKO, 10 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by KO or TKO and 3 losses by sub. 38 years old. He's 5'7". Name of his game is his wrestling and top control. That's the thing. He's something more of a grinder these days. He's big. He's a strong guy. If he gets you up against a cage, he really tries to force that takedown. And once he's on top, he's almost like impossible to get off of from the bottom from. And his stand-up's like average. Cub Swanson, 22-7 record, 8 wins by KO TKO, 7 wins by sub. He also has 5 losses by submission. 32 years old. He's 5'7", training out of Jackson Winklejohn. His stand-up's good. He has this good like in and out kickboxing game that works pretty well for him. He just recently beat beat that dude from Novelli, who's a grinder. I forgot his name at the moment. But he's actually pretty heavy-handed. And his overall grappling actually isn't too bad. His scrambling isn't that bad. I mean, Cub Swanson made him look like a rookie. I mean, Frankie Edgar made him look like a rookie. But, like, Frankie Edgar's Frankie Edgar. If he was chaining takedowns, hitting this really good ground and pound and whatnot. Um, so I like Cub Swanson's movement and the way he goes in and out. Actually, is its own takedown defense. If Kawajiri can the thing is, like, Cub Swanson already fought a guy that's stylistically like Kawajiri in his last opponent, whose name I absolutely forgot. um, Jeez, I absolutely forgot the guy. He trains on Novelli, Brazilian fighter, kind of a grinder at this point. Um, but yeah, I gotta go with Cub Swanson here to win this one. I'll even go by KO or TKO. Because I like his in and out style. I think he can defend enough takedowns, do enough on the feet. Probably actually hit Kawajiri pretty hard too. Kawajiri's method of fighting and victory really is the same. It's if he can get the fight to the ground, if he can get the takedown, he can almost always stay on top for like the rest of the round. I mean, that's his thing, at this point. Something of a grinder, you know? Or something. He is a grinder. I mean, he grinded like Jason Knight and like some other guys too. At this point, I still like Cub Swanson here. I think he can defend takedowns, beat him up on the feet. I'll even go by KO or TKO here. But Kawajiri, like I said, if he can implement his game, yeah, he can win. I mean, it just depends if whether you think he can get the consistent takedown or not. And finally, Justin Leites fights Chase Sherman. Leites 6-0, undefeated record with 1 no contest, 2 wins by KO or TKO. 4 wins by sub. He's 27 years old. He's 6'4". His first fight in the UFC. He has a finisher. He's never been to decision. So I saw he had a fight with Isaac Villanueva. Got an armbar on him actually. He has some boxing experience. His hands actually don't look too bad, and he's a decent grappler as well. Chase Sherman most recently beat Jack May. Sherman has a 9-1 record. All 9 wins by KO or TKO. 1 loss by TKO. He's 26 years old. He's 6'4" on a 4-fight win streak. It's also his first fight in the UFC. He's a finisher that's never been past the first round. That's always a red flag, though, if you've never been past the first round. But the problem is with Leites, I think he took some time off from MMA or something like that. So there isn't any recent footage of him. I only found stuff from a couple years ago. Chase's stand up. I mean, his boxing's pretty average, but he is heavy-handed. He's a pretty good athlete, though. This one's tough for me to call. I'm coin flipping here because but I'll go Chase Sherman to win. Oh man, I think Leites might actually be the better boxer here, though. Ooh, that makes it really tough to call now. Chase Sherman's still kind of a wooden boxer. What the hey? I'll just go Chase Sherman, KO or TKO. Honest truth, not confident in this pick at all. Don't know enough about these guys. I did watch a video of them, don't get me wrong. But, Leites stuff is just really old. Chase Sherman, I saw his fight against Jack May. I mean, he won because of a leg kick injury, so there wasn't much to take away from that fight. Yeah, I'll just go Chase Sherman by KO or TKO, but it's a coin flip fight for me. Okay, to recap, I have Yair Rodriguez over Alex Caceres by decision, right? Dennis Bermudez beating Hanit Bezeha by KO or TKO. Thales Leites over Chris Camozzi by submission. Santiago Ponzinibbio over Zach Cummings by... I want to say it was actually by decision, even though with the possibility of KO or TKO. Joseph Gigliotti over Trevor Smith by KO or TKO. Maryna Moroz over Danielle Taylor by submission. On the prelims, I have Court McGee over Dominique Steele by decision. Marcin Tybura over Viktor Pesta. think I called submission there. Jason Novelli over David Teymur by decision, I believe. Teruto Ishihara beating Horacio Gutierrez by, I want to say it was actually KO or TKO. Okay, on the prelims on the UFC Fight Pass, Swanson beating Tatsuya Kawajiri by KO or TKO. And then Chase Sherman over Justin Leites by KO or TKO. So that's it for my predictions for UFC Fight Night 92. If you have any comments, just leave them below. And please support me in my journey of being an author by buying some of my works, starting with my first novel, an action adventure called The Mustard Prince in the Covenant Kingdom, for $4.99 at www.chrismaldon.com on PDF format, or if you have an e-reader, you can buy it from Amazon.com for $4.99. And for just $1.99, you can buy some of my short stories and my short story collections, starting with the fantasy horror short story, Land of the Wooden Statues, my horror collection, and my fantasy fable collection. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.